and missile attacks on the USS Abraham Lincoln, though these claims remain unverified. Fears of a broader regional conflict are already intensifying. This as the UAE has shut financial markets in Abu Dhabi and Dubai for 2 days, citing security concerns. Global markets have also reacted sharply, with gold and silver prices surging and the Indian rupee weakening against the dollar. Now, remember, Iranian missiles have intercepted over Kuwait airspace, where all the targeting is currently taking place. Haim is going to take you through all of those locations which are currently being targeted in this tit-for-tat war that's breaking out between Iran, the US and Israel.
Right, thank you so much, Akanksha. Of course, we are going to get a flurry of these dramatic visuals which are coming in. Let me take you through the first video here that we have on the screen right now. Iranian missiles which were intercepted over the Kuwait airspace. If you could just zoom in there, you can see it on your screens right now. Remember, the volatility continues. There is, of course, going to be more escalation in the days to come. Donald Trump has said that this could go on for 4 weeks, oddly specific. We'll get into that as well. Moving on, then, Israel destroyed the Iranian nuclear sites. There are some of the nuclear sites which Israel claims to have destroyed. There you can see the visuals of destruction and fire. There, we also saw thick smoke over US naval base in Bahrain. Another visual that's coming in here. You can see a thick haze of smoke over these bases in Bahrain. This is the naval base here. Then, there was tear gas fired at pro-Iran protesters in Baghdad. So these are the multiple areas which are affected, and we're getting you all the visuals from these areas. Rescue teams at missile strike site in Jerusalem as well. These are the visuals of that. There you can see the rescue teams here and the wreckage there. So these are the dramatic visuals which are coming in, and we'll continue to bring you all the updates on that as well.
All right, on that note, we're getting in some more breaking inputs from Iran. This is Ali Larijani, who's reacted. He's gone on to say that we will not negotiate with the United States. Now, who is Ali Larijani? Remember, he's been the chief of the IRGC in the past. He was a close aide to the Ayatollah as well. And he is also going to act as a power broker as Iran now transitions into the new interim regime. And at the moment, Ali Larijani has issued a statement saying we will not negotiate with the United States. This is a big statement coming in, given that Iran has already indicated that there's no scope left for any form of negotiations. Joining me live in the studio is Ambassador Sajjan, also security expert Tom Cooper. Many thanks to you, gentlemen, for joining in. Ambassador Sajjan, to begin with, once bitten, twice shy, but Iran still gave them a chance to negotiate. Remember, when the attack happened, they were very much in Geneva. And that is why, you know, Iran also feels betrayed at the moment. Many have also been asking if there's still going to be scope for any negotiation. Donald Trump has indicated that the IRGC will find immunity if they surrender. So if Iran is not willing to come to the negotiating table, do you see this now escalating further?
Yeah, thank you very much, Akanksha. You know, what Mr. Trump has been saying that Iran has agreed, and the point that you made in terms of what Iran feels once bitten, twice shy, I think it would be, they have been bitten not once, they've been bitten many times.
True.
You know, not only this, you know, when the negotiations were going on in parallel, and then these attacks happened. But even before that, last year also, if you remember, what Mr. Trump had said, you know, that we are going to give it time, 10, 15 days. But then he suddenly came back from Canada, where he was there for the G7 summit. And he launched these attacks, the 12-day war that took place. So it is many times that Iran feels that, you know, it went ahead in good faith, possibly, and then its intentions were not reciprocated. But the point here is, Akanksha, what options does Iran have?
Exactly.
What choice does it have? And I think those are very, very limited, because, you know, you can't really compare, you know, the capabilities of Iran with that of Israel and the United States put together, number one. Number two, meaning it doesn't have any air defense, it doesn't have any air power. So Israel and the United States have complete dominance over the airspace as far as Iran is concerned. Number three, it does have missiles, it does have drones. But for how long will
For
they
how
continue?
long? How long?
They are getting very depleted very, very quickly. And what Iran is also doing is, rather than saving up its arsenal for attacking Israel or attacking some of the more significant targets, it has been using up that supply in terms of hitting the
Its own neighbors.
its own neighbors,
That to the Islamic
cities,
ones.
yeah, and they don't have any strategic value in that sense.
I think that was also a knee-jerk reaction when they chose to attack the US allies and their own neighbors. Tom could weigh in right now in terms of the Iranian position. Do you think that this clearly is not playing out as per prediction? Because remember, there was a lot of chatter initially about how the end goal is going to be a regime change, but that's not happening. But for how long? I think Ambassador has raised a very key question. Can the IRGC hold on to protecting the regime as of now? Tom?
Thank you. And I would like to continue where the factor Sir has stopped, which is, the point is this: the IRGC has been pressed with its back against the wall. They have no other options left. They have been ordered de facto by the Americans and by the Israelis to capitulate, to abandon their missile missile program, their nuclear program, to give up the power in Iran de facto. This is the U.S. demand through this regime change or whatever they want to have. So what are they supposed to do but to fight? They have no other options, and this is what they are doing. So while I'm stressing, I'm not pro-regime or something else. I'm trying to explain you that point of view because I know so many of them. So what are they supposed to do?
Also quickly want to bring in retired Lieutenant General D.P. Pandey, security analyst, also joining me live on the broadcast. Many thanks to you, sir, for joining in. Do you see that this is now going to only escalate further as a war? But then the key question right now, Lieutenant General Pandey, is that for how long can Iran hold on to the IRGC? Also, they're using the blockage in the Strait of Hormuz as a bargaining chip. Will this be able to yield any result? Because time is of the essence, and many have also questioned the strategy of attacking their own neighbors, particularly UAE, also Bahrain, and this is only expanding in terms of the retaliation that we are seeing come out of Iran. Lieutenant General Pandey.
So, Akansha, this is just about 24, not even 48 hours, this whole thing has started. We expect something like what Venezuela happened. Venezuela is somewhere about 50th military power, and virtually everybody was tired of the leader, and we wanted to go in to Iran and carry out this kind of a thing. I think Israelis and Americans knew very well where they are going, and they would have war gamed this entire thing. That is not going to finish in just about 2 to 3 days. It is not India, Pakistan that in 88 hours a country will just triple. You're looking at a country which is ruled very, very strongly by layered system which is looking after the people. So while Ayatollah Khamenei has been taken out, nearly about 40 to 50 top leadership has been taken out, but there are second, third rung leadership which exist. So they will keep on popping up and they will take control. But only challenge with Iran which happens is that now with multiple voices speaking, in case you remember, day before yesterday, IRGC said that Hormuz is going to be targeted, but yesterday their foreign minister came and said, no, Hormuz will not be targeted, it will be kept open. So now there will be multiple voices will come out. Now these multiple voices are the one which break up, and the conversation will become that one side will want to have a dialogue and return to peace. What is done, and we need to look at future. But the second, which is a hardline community, which has been there in power, and they know that once they cede power, then their life and the future is going to be whatever Trump can promise, that there'll be lift off and things will happen. But within their own country, they are going to be brought
Okay.
to justice. So this is not going to finish easy.
Right.
Neither
Lieutenant General
for
Pandey,
the
I'm so
region
sorry
or
to
for the
interrupt you
Iranians.
there. I'm getting in some breaking inputs as we speak. In fact, Israel's IDF now coming out with more information that they have killed Mohammed Raad, who heads Hezbollah's faction in the Lebanese parliament in Beirut after Hezbollah launched rockets towards Israel. So continuous attacks now happening, and this is in fact a massive breakthrough. Tom, would you like to weigh in on this? Mohammed Raad, the man heading Hezbollah's faction in the Lebanese parliament in Beirut. So this is exactly what we have also been discussing in the last 24 hours. Tom, if you may want to weigh in on all of these, what Iran would want to call strategic assets to Iran, whether it is the Hezbollah or whether it is Hamas. These terror militias have in fact been decimated completely, and is this going to be the end of the Iranian regime, if not just yet? Tom?
Well, I do not expect this to be the end of the Iranian regime. As far as I can say, yes, Hezbollah has suffered heavy losses the last 2 years, but they are still there. You cannot kill an idea. And Hezbollah came into being as a tool of defense of the Shia of southern Lebanon that were massacred by Israel by dozens of thousands all through the 1970s. So they need defense, they need protection. That means they need this idea of safety. So if you cannot now demand from them to stop wanting to feel safe. Correspondingly, they are going to remain where they are in one form or the other. It's similar with the Iranian regime. Came into being on basis of opposition to the US hegemony over the country, or the US influence, Western influence, however we want to call it. This is not going to disappear over the night.
So what's in fact a bit surprising is Donald Trump's own claims that in the first post that he had shared on Truth Social, making that announcement about the killing of the Ayatollah, he spoke about how they have been in touch with the IRGC, the military, even the police, and they have given them this sense that they do not want this conflict to continue, and that the only way for them to buy immunity means that they should surrender. I'd like your thoughts on that claim that he's making. Is this conflict at the moment also a face-saving attempt by the United States, because they're also going to ensure that there's complete obliteration of their nuclear sites? I could perhaps have you weigh in on that, Ambassador, in just a second. In fact, Haim has some information that she'd like us to go through.
In fact, for that, if I could call, Tom, if you could just come here. Of course, we're trying to take our viewers through the sensitive areas at this point. Remember, viewers, there are a lot of flight disruptions that we're also looking at. But first, let's just take a look at this map, and if Tom could then take us through all the sensitive areas at this point where we are also seeing certain strikes. Tom.
Thank you. Well, as of the last night and yesterday, the Israelis and Americans are primarily attacking Iran from the west and striking sites in the Tehran area, Esfahan area, for example, and Qom. I'm honestly surprised that there are next to no reports about strikes from central and eastern Iran, just for example. In turn, Iran has launched a very heavy, very severe strike at Jerusalem, for example, missile strike, and there were really dozens of missiles to be seen coming down in the Jerusalem area. In the Persian Gulf, this is one of the typical situations for IRGC under the given circumstances. The leadership is partially killed or not available. Then the local commanders start acting on their own, along pre-planned designs, so to say. And therefore, one of them has attacked an oil rig in the Persian Gulf and hit it with an UAV. Another one has attacked a merchant somewhere here in this area. And there were also threats with closing the Hormuz Strait. Then Larijani appeared, who is the actual strongman, if I'm to ask. Larijani is currently the most powerful person in Tehran. He appeared and said, no, we are not closing the Hormuz Strait. Why? Because he thinks one way, the people in the field think the other way. Commanders who are cut off from the outside world, they think their own way. They are acting on their own because they are trained to act on their own.
All right. Now, of course, Tom, when we discuss all these areas which are, of course, under threat at this time, when we're talking about the vacuum that we're seeing in Iran at this point as well, you said earlier that you cannot kill an idea. And, of course, a lot of other experts have also observed that hardly do you ever see regime change just by way of airstrikes, and there has to be some boots on ground as well. When we talk about options and the end game, what do you think is going to happen and how this is going to unfold going forward?
I think that essentially what is this? Where this is going to lead is what I call the scenario 3, which is some sort of nothing comes out of it. Everything remains the way it is.
All right.
That means the regime remains in force in one way or the other. There is a question of ideological orientation of the new supreme leader, whoever this is going to be. On the other hand, Trump is going to scream and shout and boast with us another victory, just like last year in June. Netanyahu is going to declare it for another major victory, and whatever they have disabled Iran, or in their typical style. I call this idiocracy. Generally, it is a very harsh word, but it is actually perfectly covering what both sides are doing. They are living in their parallel universe, whether the Iranian regime or the U.S. president in the White House or Netanyahu, and they are, explaining one version of things.
Do you think that they've also had a set of learning from Operation Rising Lion?
Set of learning.
Yeah, because, there were claims being made by the United States. The US president was very confident that they had completely obliterated the nuclear facilities in Iran in the strikes last year in June.
Yes.
So that learning, because this time around he's making it amply clear that they will reach their end goal and only then will they settle. And that's why he said that we will ensure that our goals are reached upon. And I think the goal he means is to completely obliterate all the nuclear sites that are left. So is that the learning that they've had from the June strikes when we talk about Operation Rising Lion?
All I can answer in this regard is why should he learn anything? He is untouchable, unaccountable, President Trump. So why should he even care to learn something?
No, because the claims he had made last time around was that they had completely destroyed the nuclear sites. But the US intelligence corrected his information that
in a matter of hours, yes. So it's the same now. His chiefs of staff have told him, listen, we can run an operation for perhaps 1 week. We do not have the ammunition. We cannot destroy everything you want us to destroy. And his reaction to this was, oh, everything is fine, let's attack. So what has he learned?
All right, we'll continue with that discussion. I think Haim also wants to go to the newsroom and maybe take this discussion forward. And while Haim reaches Aman, in the meantime, Ambassador, you could also weigh in on that question that I was talking about, the IRGC scope for immunity back over there.
Yeah, thank you for that question, Akansha. I think IRGC is a very disciplined force, and it has been established to protect the regime, basically to protect the supreme leader and the setup around it. So they are very ideologically motivated. So I don't think the flip is going to take place as quickly as it took place in Venezuela. Everyone sort of is coming back to Venezuela, but you had the Vice President Delcy Rodriguez and the others. I think they had been compromised in advance. When Nicolas Maduro was taken, that, this is the arrangement that we are going to work out, you will be allowed to stay. But that having been said, Akansha, if you permit, just one more comment. There are multiple voices that are going to emerge in Iran. It's not going to be, there's no supreme leader. There's no single supreme leader. Today, the Guardianship Council comprises of 3 people. Pezeshkian, the president, Ghulam Muhammad Usmani, whatever, the Chief Justice, and Ali Raza Arafi. Now, many of them will also be moderates. We have to
All right. So, of course, we are bringing you all the updates from the newsroom as well. This is where our social media desk is. They are tracking all the developments on what's happening. If you could just tell our viewers what we're looking at right now.
They have their back to the wall.
These are the social media trends, and the Iran-Israel conflict has taken over the entire internet. There's nothing trending but this and this only.
Right.
Pakistan is trending. There's Donald Trump. There's stock market crash. There's Iran-Israel conflict. That is also there. There are a lot of fake videos,
Right.
old videos.
And if we could just perhaps take us through what are some of the big headlines which are trending at the moment? Missile
Iran's
strikes in the UAE, of course.
That's it. And there are also a lot of old videos and fake
All
videos
right, which are
that
now resurfacing, and of course
yeah.
we're going to be sifting through that and get you the latest developments on that as well. If you could take us through what we're going through here as well. So these are some of the trends that we are seeing, right?
Yeah, currently, the social trends are Israeli strikes on Tehran hospitals, the Operation Epic Fury is trending, World War III is trending, Khamenei is trending. Majorly, the Dubai videos are very trending right now.
All right, so these are some of the big trends that we're tracking at this moment, and of course, with that comes also a lot of misinformation that we tend to see on social media, and that's something that we keep a track on as well. But these are some of the big headlines that we will be tracking. Let me get you some other updates from the newspaper as well. Aman, what is it that we are looking at right now, right here?
Well, see, these are the latest visuals which are coming from Karachi. Yesterday, the US consulate in Karachi was attacked by Pakistani Shia protesters, and you can see this horrific visuals. This is the US consulate where all of them entered, and later the US Marines had to open fire at them. It is believed that nearly 20 of them were killed in this particular attack on the US consulate, and today all the US embassies and consulates in Pakistan have declined all the appointments. So everybody's on a high alert at various US consulates in Pakistan, because this is the situation there. You know, big protests are happening. Also, I can show you the latest visuals that have come, and the US Central Command has put them out, of the USS Gerald Ford. The world's largest aircraft carrier is in the fight with US forces supporting Operation Epic Fury, and these are the big pictures. These are the pictures that are being put out by the US government to show their preparation in the Eastern Mediterranean Sea, where the largest aircraft carrier is very much a part of Operation Epic Fury. It is from here that their fighter planes are taking off. You can see the exclusive pictures which have been put out by the US now to show their might while they are attacking the Iranian forces. These are the latest pictures which are coming in. You can see this fighter aircraft taking off from the world's largest aircraft carrier, which is the US Gerald Ford, which is stationed in the Eastern Mediterranean Sea. And these are the big pictures that, these are exclusive pictures which are coming for the first time on how Operation Epic Fury has been carried out by the US. And this is the might of the US military, which is on full display now. And as Donald Trump has been saying, that we will completely annihilate the Iranian Navy, and that is what is being shown.
Right.
If I'll show you one more visual here, this is the drone footage of the attack which happened in Jerusalem. This is a drone strike which was carried out by the forces of by Iran there, and you can see this drone footage. Look at the extent of damage. So Iran is also not backing off by any means. You can see this is the footage coming from Jerusalem, how this huge crater has been created by this Iranian missile which fell in Jerusalem. And this is footage from last night, drone footage coming from there. These are all very dramatic visuals, and that is what is showing that how the extent of this war is now becoming only bigger by the day. The US is showing its might, but Iran is also striking at the infrastructure in Israel and showing its might as well.
Right. Well, thank you so much for that, Aman. Now, of course, that's what we are seeing at this point from the newsroom. These are some of the developments that we are tracking here. Back in the studio, it's over to you, Akanksha.
Right. So as we can see, this is having a domino effect for sure, and in the latest visuals that we are bringing to you are of protesters in Pakistan. This is in fact the US consulate. These visuals are from outside the US consulate. Horrifying visuals. 10 protesters, in fact, information coming in is that already are killed during these protests. As you can see, the US forces over there, which are stationed outside the US consulate in Karachi, are in fact retaliating, and that has led to the death of 10 protesters. Remember, there's a lot of anger on ground level, as those visuals you can see are of wounded, injured Pakistani protesters. A lot of vandal arson actually taking place over there. All right, absolutely gory visuals over there coming in. As you can see, bloodied, wounded protesters being taken out. The US forces which are currently at this consulate are retaliating. They have attacked these protesters, and in the latest information that we are getting in is that 10 protesters have been killed. This is outside the consulate, the US consulate in Karachi. Shocking visuals, in fact, coming in. This is the latest video that we are bringing to you, which is showing how the attack actually has happened. There's enough evidence to prove that the consulate was actually attacked. Vandalism, arson, and many of the protesters, in fact, being taken out. Hundreds of people had stormed this consulate. How many other US embassies are going to be attacked? We do not know, because there's a lot of anger brewing within Asia. In India also, we witnessed a host of protests. But remember, as far as the consulates are concerned, they at least remain protected in India. Let's quickly, in fact, go across to Aman also, who will be bringing us more inputs on this news story. But remember, you're looking at an attack. The killing of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei is not just the killing of a supreme leader of Iran. He was also regarded as the godfather, as the religious leader of the Shias across the globe. And so, even though Pakistan is dominated heavily by the Sunnis, there's a lot of anger in terms of why such an attack had to happen. The killing of the Ayatollah is not going to be the killing of, say, Saddam Hussein being taken to the gallows. Let me quickly bring in Aman on that note. Aman, as we've been talking about, the killing of the Ayatollah is not going to be taken lying down by the overall Muslim population, because look at the kind of anger brewing in Pakistan, a country which is in fact not even dominated by the Shias.
Very clearly, Akanksha, these visuals are from yesterday, exclusively brought to us by our internal security editor Manoj Gupta. These are the visuals when the Shia protesters in Karachi had stormed the US consulate yesterday. It was a very violent protest, and close to 20 people are said to have been killed in this protest when the US Marines, obviously to safeguard their diplomatic enclave, opened fire. And these are the horrific visuals you can see from the US consulate in Karachi, where, and it's a major consulate, you know, it's a major place also in Karachi, and this was stormed by hundreds of Pakistani protesters to protest against the death of Khamenei. And today what is happening also, Akanksha, is that the US embassy in Islamabad has issued a statement saying that they are not entertaining any appointments today at any of their consulates or embassy in Islamabad. So US taking abundant caution.
In fact, even the policemen have been attacked over there. What we are being told, among the injured were 4 policemen. You said that 20 protesters have already died. Of course, the US forces are also retaliating against the kind of attack we've seen. Look at the visuals. The kind of arson, the kind of plundering that's also happening. They've completely destroyed the US consulate, and bloodied faces, in fact, of these protesters running out.
Heavy damage was caused to the consulate. Yesterday, Akanksha, we had got pictures of inside the compound when people with sticks were trying to bang at the windows and the grills. But this particular video, which exclusively is with CNN News 18, now shows the extent of damage which has been caused at the US consulate. You can see people with bloodied faces coming outside that, people injured coming outside from there. There are people wearing masks and covering their faces. So clearly they were trying to also hide their identity while storming the US consulate. But, you know, attacking a US consulate or US embassy on foreign soil is an extremely dangerous crime. And that is why I think the US Marines had to open fire to safeguard their property, to safeguard their own lives. And that is why we believe that nearly 20 people were killed in these particular protests. And today, the US embassy is effectively shutting down, you know, for operations for the day, because the situation is still very tense and situation is still very fluid there. And they are expecting more protests, in fact, in Peshawar, in other consulates that the US has. That is why I think the situation is pretty precarious in Pakistan.
Let me quickly go across to Siddhant also, who will perhaps share more inputs with us. Siddhant, what more can you tell us, given that the situation as far as the security in Pakistan is concerned, it's already been on tenterhooks. Can Pakistan afford even further turmoil at the moment? Siddhant, can you hear me?
Right. So this release has come from, yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Can you hear me, Akanksha?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yes. So this release has come from US embassy and consulate in Pakistan, and this release says that we are monitoring reports of ongoing demonstrations at the US Consulate Generals in Lahore and violent protests at the US Consulate General in Karachi, as well as calls for additional demonstrations at US Embassy Islamabad and various other diplomatic buildings in Pakistan. Now, this advisory says that we advise US citizens in Pakistan to monitor local news, observe good personal security practices, including being aware of your surroundings and avoiding large crowds, and ensuring your step registration is up to date. And in fact, this advisory also announces that due to protest activity around the US consulates in Karachi and Lahore, US Embassy in Islamabad, all appointments for US visas and American citizen services are cancelled for tomorrow, which is 2nd March. So a big announcement coming from US Embassy in Islamabad.
Right.
In fact, Akanksha, yesterday what unfolded in Lahore and Karachi, perhaps there was stone pelting at US diplomatic buildings. In fact, protesters barged inside the buildings. They created ruckus. Anti-America sloganeering was done by the protesters. In fact, the US Marines had to open fire on the protesters, and more than 10 people lost their lives. So situation is still tensed on ground, and perhaps this is the reason that this decision has been taken by US Embassy in Islamabad.
All right, Siddhan, do stay on with us. Of course, there's going to be a lot more to track there as well. We're getting in some more breaking information right now. Gold price rises. It helps banking sector, but of course, it's going to have an impact on inflation as well. Now, finance minister sources are telling us that they're monitoring this situation and will step in as and when needed. But this was what was expected. So this is the latest information that we're getting right now. Akanksha, on this.
Right. This was on expected lines, and I'm going to quickly toss over to Pallavi for more inputs. Pallavi, the rupee, in fact, is looking at its lowest in the last 1 month. What else can you tell us with regards to how the equity markets are bearing the brunt of this?
Pricing, gold and silver pricing have a direct relationship to the stability factor. So whenever there is a semblance of political instability, and more importantly, war looms large, the first people to be impacted will be those who are connected to the gold, silver prices, and of course, as far as the rupee is concerned. Over the last couple of weeks and months, we have been seeing a huge surge as far as the price of gold and silver is concerned, but that was also attributed to a level of uncertainty to the trade deals and those things. But now it's clear that there is a war which is very much there, and therefore this is something which the Indian government had factored in. In fact, what I'm being told at the CCS meeting where the Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman was present there, this was also one of the multiple issues which were discussed. Because look, a war is going to have an impact on us. First of all, as far as the closure of the Strait of Hormuz is concerned, all our liquid natural gas or the LNG supply, 80% of it comes in from there. It will have an impact on our exports and our imports. A gold and a silver surge has a long-term impact on the inflation factors, which is why the Finance Ministry is watching and monitoring the situation very, very closely.
All right. Many thanks to you, Pallavi. We will keep coming back to you for all the latest information. Getting in more breaking inputs. This is with regards to the instructions coming in from the centre here in India, which has cautioned all states to keep an eye on pro-Iran protests, ensure it does not turn into a law and order issue, as we're already witnessing in Pakistan. Police brass also asked to preempt any inflammatory summons in religious gatherings. Let's quickly take this forward with Arunima. Arunima, what are the instructions being sent out to the states?
See, the background is that Ayatollah Khomeini was a religious figurehead also for the Shia sect. So in Lucknow, for example, in Kargil, in Kashmir, we had seen a lot of mourners come out and hit the streets after news trickled in that he had been eliminated in the Israel-US joint strike. But there was a risk that this fury could deteriorate into a law and order issue. You rightly pointed out to the example of Pakistan, where the situation has become out of hand. So the centre's advisory to the state governments, especially to the police brass, discourage any kind of sermon at religious congregations which can turn political. At Ghanta Ghar near Lal Chowk in Srinagar, for example, steps have already been taken. That entire area saw a lot of mourners and protesters gather yesterday. But then late at night, I think action was taken. That area has been barricaded. Similar protests were seen in Kargil also, where there is a significant presence of Shia sect. And there also, police is keeping a very close eye on the kind of gathering that is happening. The Imambara area in Lucknow. Again, Lucknow is a city where the Shia population, and Akansha, it's a hometown, you would know more.
Okay.
So, there's a lot of population of the Shia sect there. So these pockets, specifically, police has been asked to keep an eye to ensure that it does not translate, that Indian soil is not utilized by either pro-Iranian or pro-Israel activists for any kind of political, sloganeering or protest.
Stay with me, Arunima. We have some more breaking inputs, in fact, coming in because Union Minister Kiran Rijiju has also reacted. He's gone on to say that India has always stood with stranded Indian nationals and steps taken in the past will be repeated this time around as well. Remember, there's a lot of panic because thousands and thousands of Indians are currently stranded in the Middle East, particularly in Iran and Israel. In fact, a host of journalists had accompanied the Prime Minister's delegation to Israel. They continue to remain stranded. Let's also listen in to what Kiran Rijiju actually had to say.
आज तक विदेश में जो हमारा भारतीय लोगों को समस्या जैसे होते हैं उसको लाने में और संभालने में प्रधानमंत्री मोदी जी के नेतृत्व में जो आज तक होते आए हैं, कभी भी पहले ऐसा कोई सरकार नहीं करते थे, इतना व्यापक सहायता करते हैं। वो तो हमारे विदेश मंत्रालय उसमें अपने अपने मिशंस होते हैं हर देश में, वो मिशन के माध्यम से भारतीय लोगों को मदद करते हैं हमेशा।
Let's quickly take this forward with Arunima. Arunima, the panic is palpable. Perhaps that's why also Prime Minister has made an outreach not just to the Israeli Prime Minister but also to the UAE President. But the fact of the matter is that evacuations can only take place if there is some semblance of normalcy. Remember, airspaces are already shut.
And that's the biggest challenge that Indian government is facing, even though Minority and Parliamentary Affairs Minister Kiran Rijiju is assuring that we have done this in the past. If you go back to the Ukraine-Russia war, India, mounted a huge operation where senior ministers were sent to border countries and Ukrainian, Indian students stuck in Ukraine were brought back home. But in this case, the situation is very different. We are seeing airstrikes continuously. Dubai, which is not really in the heart of the conflict between Israel, US and Iran, they have been targeted. There have also been reports coming in from Abu Dhabi, from Qatar, and from Bahrain. So how do you really ensure that these Indian nationals, including, badminton Olympic medal winner PV Sindhu, there are actors who have appealed to the Prime Minister. There is a delegation of legislators from Karnataka who are stuck there. So it's not just the common Aam Aadmi, it is also people who are considered VIP who are stuck there. But the Indian government is trying with all its might to see what can be done at this stage. However, the message to everybody is is just hold in there, move to any place which can offer you shelter. Whatever instructions are coming in from the Israeli government, just follow that, or from the Dubai government in UAE, just follow those instructions. And Indian government is trying to reach out and assure that we are, trying our best to bring you back.
Many thanks to you, Arunima, for bringing us those breaking inputs. In fact, getting in some more exclusive news break. This is information shared by our investigations editor, Manoj Gupta. India is reviewing its own set of evacuation plans for Indian citizens stranded in the Gulf and Iran. In fact, the CCS has focused on de-escalation and safety of Indians abroad amid the Iran crisis. The CCS has discussed internal safeguards and outreach to regional stakeholders. Let's quickly take this forward with Aman Sharma, who's joining me live from the newsroom. Aman, what are the options before the Indian government at the moment?
Well, Akanksha, the options are a bit limited and difficult right now because the entire airspace is closed. So how do we go and evacuate our citizens from there? There are nearly 8 million Indians who live in the Middle East. So how do you evacuate such a huge number of Indian population from there is a major concern. The contingency plans, we believe, are being discussed, and it was discussed at the yesterday's Cabinet Committee on Security, also chaired by the Prime Minister. The immediate priority of India is to reach out to all the stakeholders, all these countries, and seek assurances from them that the Indian citizens there will remain safe. That is the main reason why Mr. Modi also called up the UAE President last night and spoke to him about the same, saying that please ensure and assure us about the safety of Indian citizens. He's also the Foreign Minister had also called up all his counterparts a couple of days back, impressing upon the same thing. Also, India is reaching out to all the regional stakeholders there. That is a decision at the CCS yesterday to press everybody for de-escalation, because India is extremely concerned over over the rising, this whole conflict spreading, especially the Iranian strikes which have happened on the civilian infrastructure in UAE. And in fact, when Mr. Modi spoke to the UAE president, he condemned these strikes which have happened in the UAE, though India has still not condemned the killing of Khamenei, which many in the opposition here in India, especially the Congress party, are criticizing India for not doing it. But I think India is maintaining a very fine diplomatic line, and as our internal security editor Manoj Gupta is reporting, the top priority of India right now is to ensure the safety of its citizens abroad and also prepare contingency plans, maybe for the near future, maybe if they need an evacuation. Indian systems and Indian equipment, Air Force should be in place, and I think that contingency plans are being made, but we'll wait, of course, for the airspace to open, because right now the skies over the Middle East are absolutely not safe for any kind of evacuation.
All right, Raman, thank you so much for bringing us the developments on that front as well. We're getting into more breaking information right now. Fighter jet crashes in Kuwait. We're talking about an F-15 which has crashed here in Kuwait, and there's of course been many reactions which have been pouring in as well. We'll bring you those as well. Let me just go to Siddhant for more on this. Siddhant, what can you tell us?
Well, that's right. So right now there's very little information available with us as far as this crash of F-15 in Kuwait is concerned. Perhaps this video of F-15 going down has gone viral, and in fact we've been told that this is an American military F-15 which has been shot down in Kuwait. This would be the first time in the history that the American F-15 has been shot down. As I said, that we have very little information available about this particular jet going down. But all we can tell our viewers is that since morning, in the Kuwaiti skies, there were many missiles which were intercepted by the air defense systems. Many missiles were neutralized by Kuwaiti air defense systems. And since morning, in fact, I have been getting calls from Kuwait about loud explosions being heard by people. So, there was action since morning in the Kuwaiti sky, and now we're getting to know this F-15 has been shot down. This is an American F-15. This is what is being reported by various news agencies. As I said, that we have a very little information at this
Siddhant,
point
we
in
will
time
keep coming
about,
back to you. Let's quickly play out that visual here that we have on the screen. Joining me is a security expert, Tom Cooper, also live from the studios of CNN News 18. So, Tom, if you look at this latest jet that's been downed over here, first of all, to begin with, before I take this discussion forward with you into the escalatory nature of this conflict, weigh in on this particular jet that's been downed at the moment in Kuwait.
Well, what you can see is that if you can stop this for a second.
Right. I'm going to request my team to actually pause when they loop in that visual again. Benoy, if you could please pause that visual when we start again over here. Yes, right. Please. So if you can see, this is where this entire jet is.
So it is clearly an F-15. Twin tails, big delta wing. So please continue.
Right. So if it's an F-15, we are also looking at Iran actually.
Okay, stop now.
Stop. Please stop.
Okay. Under the intakes, here under the intake, these are the intakes which are feeding air into the engines. You can see pods. These are lantern pods or littering pods or whatever it has installed. This is identified this aircraft as an F-15E. F-15E is actually one of the most sophisticated variants.
So how do you, in fact, weigh in on the overall trajectory of all of these fighter jets, the drones that are being directed towards various locations in all of these Middle Eastern countries, whether it is UAE, whether it is Jordan, Bahrain, Kuwait, all of them. There's a lot of talk about how civilians and the civilian locations are being targeted. Do you see this as a conscious effort of targeting civilian locations, or is it that there are obstacles on the trajectory that is downing them?
I'm explaining this in later fashion, which means there are obstacles. The people who are operating such systems, they are in a rush, they're in a hurry, under combat stress. They simply program their systems in order to reach the specific geographic coordinates. They do not care or do not have the time to care what is in between, what kind of obstacles.
So what in your viewpoint could be that geographic coordinate over here, given that we are looking at consistent attacks being directed towards US allies in the Middle East, all of these countries?
US bases. This
US
is what
bases.
Iranians, even the officials are telling this to the members of the Gulf Cooperation Council, which is Arab Gulf states. Guys, you have US bases over there, and we are targeting these US bases.
All right, that's a very interesting point that Tom has just now shared with us, that it is not that there are conscious efforts being made to only target civilian locations. The real target is, of course, US bases, as Tom has been highlighting. They're feeding those geographic coordinates in those drones, in these fighter jets. But perhaps because these are densely populated locations, they are coming across obstacles, and that's when they are getting down. CNN's Nick Robertson is reporting on the next 12 to 24 hours how the GCC countries are hoping Iran could perhaps listen to their diplomatic messages. We'll take this discussion forward, but let's listen into what Nick Robertson has had to say.
Our international diplomatic editor, Nick Robertson, is joining me now from Saudi Arabia. And Nick, obviously this is a key question of how this is playing out with the Crown Prince in Saudi Arabia, as well as what these other leaders in the region are saying tonight.
Yeah, look, I think the question on the minds of all the leadership around the region at the moment is what is Iran's leadership going to do next? Does it also have a singular leadership? And that's a very core question, because the assessment that I'm hearing from sources here is that what happens over the next 12 to 24 hours will really be key for indicating what happens over the next week and beyond that. There is a very, very strong diplomatic message being sent from the region here. There was a virtual meeting of the GCC's ministers, the foreign ministers, the Saudi foreign minister here having a statement saying that they condemned the flagrant and unjustified attacks on the GCC countries by Iran, and that they stressed that it was the country's right to take all necessary measures, that's their words, all necessary measures to protect its security and stability. And that very much reflects what we heard from the Saudi kingdom a few hours before that, which was calling Iran's strikes targeting areas in Saudi cowardly, because as you mentioned there, Saudi Arabia very clearly had made it publicly known to Iran, and they say Iran was aware that Saudi airspace was not being used for attacks on Iran, and the very clear messaging coming from the foreign ministry on this particular issue, and that is, in the light of these, and again it sounds very similar to the language used by the GCC here, in the light of this unjustified aggression, the kingdom affirms it will take all necessary measures, again, all necessary measures to defend its security, protect its territory, its citizens, its residents, including the option of responding to the aggression, including the option of responding to the aggression. So this is strong diplomatic language, and it's this kind of language that it's hoped in this region causes the Iranian leadership, whatever it is, to pause and desist in the strikes on these GCC countries.
Right now, there's already a traffic jam, if I can say that, a ship jam as far as the Strait of Hormuz is concerned. Let's go across to our guest, Angie Wong, who's also continuing to be with us. So how do you look at this? How long can Iran officially said it's not going to block the Strait of Hormuz, but we're seeing that it's not operating. There is a backlog now that is now piling up of ships there in the region as well. How long can they do this, and how long can other world powers allow this to happen?
Well, I think a lot of this is by design. I mean, anyone entering a war in the regions knows that the Strait of Hormuz was going to be one of the very first things that was going to get shut, if not disrupted. Already here in the U.S., we're seeing gas lines, because those who are watching the news understands that there's going to be some sort of disruptions. Even though we have plenty of reserves, the consumer here is feeling that there might be some disruptions, and therefore gas prices may go up. Now, the reason why I say that some of it is by design is because later this month, President Trump meets with Xi Jinping over U.S.-China trade relations. And it seems as though the strategy with the Trump administration has been to cut off the oil supply for both China and for Russia for the purposes of ending world conflicts. So this could go on for some time if President Trump chooses to. Now, if politically here in the U.S., it doesn't look very good for him, if Americans are paying upwards of $7 per gallon for gas like we did back in the Biden administration, well, he might not like that very much and try to reverse a few things. But I would not discount this as being a short-term situation. I would definitely say that, I don't believe that the Trump administration minds if gas prices and other disruptions to energy remains this way for at least
I'll come back to you with more on that, because that's an interesting comment you made. A lot of others suggesting to that point as well. But Vinny Motiwala, my colleague from CNBC TV 18, is now joining us on the market situation as far as India is concerned. Vinny, your thoughts on what we're witnessing?
Hi, absolutely. So what we're seeing in terms of the markets today, as expected, we're seeing red on the screen for the Indian markets. Nifty is down more than 200 points, 1%, more than 1% decline. Actually, now it's down 300 points, the Nifty 50. So down 1.2% in the trading session. The Sensex is down more than 1,000 points. That is also down 1.3%. Broader end of the market, that's when you look at the Nifty mid cap and small cap, also is seeing a more than 1% decline in the trading session. As of now, all the sectors, whether you look at, are trading in the red. Obviously, leading the decline today is going to be the realty pack. That's down more than 2%. We have energy, auto, PSU banks, all of them seeing a decline of more than
Okay, welcome back. Staying with our live and rolling coverage on Iran, getting in some more breaking inputs. There are fresh explosions being reported near the Erbil airport, which has been eliminated. These were two drones, in fact, and visuals from Bahrain are showing a strike as well. So fresh explosions being reported in Bahrain, Dubai and Doha as well. These are, in fact, some of the visuals that we are bringing to you of these fresh explosions, which are currently, we are bringing to you are from Bahrain. They show an entire strike that's happened at the Jufair base. These are fresh explosions that are being reported in Bahrain. And it's not just in Bahrain, more explosions taking place in Dubai, even in Doha. In fact, AFP journalists have confirmed utter chaos across Gulf capitals. Let me quickly, in fact, take this forward with Tom, who continues to stay with us from the studios of CNN News 18. So, Tom, as we've been discussing the escalatory nature of this, because remember, you're not just looking at Iran and this being limited to, say, Israel and Iran. There are a host of US allies which have now inevitably gotten involved, and you're looking at these fresh explosions being reported in Bahrain, in Doha and in Kuwait as well. So take us through how this could actually quickly snowball, and if, in fact, come into the frame, would be good if you can explain us the nature of these explosions and what this could mean if these US allies also start retaliating.
Well, these are, as you can see, the smoke or dust is light, which means these are fresh explosions and there is nothing burning yet. So most of this is probably dust. And I guess that one or another part of the local military installation was hit by reportedly 2 UAVs from Iran.
It's interesting that you highlighted that the ultimate target for them is US assets as well. But because these are densely populated locations.
The point is this, the Iranians are trying, this is their plan, to strike US and Israeli bases, air bases foremost, in order to disrupt their operations. Why? Because if they strike air bases, the Americans and Israelis cannot refuel, rearm their aircraft and send them over Iran again. Or if they can, then they are delayed, and so they have to wait until the strike is over, until the runways are clean, and then they can take off. So
there was a very interesting point you made, that if indeed the civilians were the targets, then perhaps there could have been hundreds and thousands of casualties. Actually,
if Iranians would be interested in striking civilians, they would do so, and that severely, and then there would really be, well, at least hundreds, if not thousands of casualties. But this is not done. And as far as I can say, really, by best will, they are striking military targets. What is happening, sometimes there are obstacles in between, and sometimes they're incoming, or most of the times, incoming missiles and incoming UAVs are shot down by defenses, air defenses, and then the wreckage is falling down to the ground.
I'm afraid I'll have to take a quick break over here. Thank you, Tom, for weighing in on all the latest information that is pouring in. Tom Cooper, one of the world-renowned security analysts, is here with us from the studios of CNN News 18. He will continue to weigh in on all the latest information that is in fact coming in. For now, we're slipping into a quick break. Stay tuned to CNN News 18 as we return with the latest.
Right now, there's already a traffic jam, if I can say that, a ship jam as far as the Strait of Hormuz is concerned. Let's go across to our guest, Angie Wong, who's also continuing to be with us. So how do you look at this? How long can Iran officially said it's not going to block the Strait of Hormuz, but we're seeing that it's not operating. There is a backlog now that is now piling up of ships there in the region as well. How long can they do this, and how long can other world powers allow this to happen?
Well, I think a lot of this is by design. I mean, anyone entering a war in the regions knows that the Strait of Hormuz was going to be one of the very first things that was going to get shut, if not disrupted. Already here in the U.S., we're seeing gas lines because those who are watching the news understands that there's going to be some sort of disruptions, even though we have plenty of reserves. The consumer here is feeling that there might be some disruptions and therefore gas prices may go up. Now, the reason why I say that some of it is by design is because later this month, President Trump meets with Xi Jinping over U.S.-China trade relations. And it seems as though the strategy with the Trump administration has been to cut off the oil supply for both China and for Russia for the purposes of ending world conflicts. So this could go on for some time if President Trump chooses to. Now, if politically here in the U.S., it doesn't look very good for him, if Americans are paying upwards of $7 per gallon for gas like we did back in the Biden administration, well, he might not like that very much and try to reverse a few things. But I would not discount this as being a short-term situation. I would definitely say that, I don't believe that the Trump administration minds if gas prices and other disruptions to energy remains this way for at least
I'll come back to you with more on that, because that's an interesting comment you made. A lot of others suggesting to that point as well. But Vinny Motiwala, my colleague from CNBC TV 18, is now joining us on the market situation as far as India is concerned. Vinny, your thoughts on what we're witnessing?
Hi, absolutely. So what we're seeing in terms of the markets today, as expected, we're seeing red on the screen for the Indian markets. Nifty is down more than 200 points, 1%, more than 1% decline. Actually, now it's down 300 points, the Nifty 50. So down 1.2% in the trading session. The Sensex is down more than 1,000 points. That is also down 1.3%. Broader end of the market, that's when you look at the Nifty mid cap and small cap, also is seeing a more than 1% decline in the trading session. As of now, all the sectors, whether you look at, are trading in the red. Obviously, leading the decline today is going to be the realty pack. That's down more than 2%. We have energy, auto, PSU banks, all of them seeing a decline of more than 1% in the trading session. Now, obviously, because of the issues that were there and the concerns that are going on and the war going on in US, Israel, Iran, the conflicts over there, that has led to a decline in a lot of stock names, whether you look at something like an L&T, KC International, all of them are seeing a...
All right, so the conflict triggered by the United States and Israel is expanding quickly. This with Iran continuing with its retaliatory strikes now. Fresh explosions already being reported in Doha, in Kuwait. In fact, an American fighter jet has also been downed. This is the latest that we are telling you. And in fact, the US president has also acknowledged American casualties. He's also gone on to indicate that there could be more casualties. We will continue to bring you all the latest that is keeping the Middle East on tenterhooks. For now, let's quickly bring you the headlines. We're tracking this up. West Asia's war is escalating as Iran and Israel trade fresh strikes and counter-strikes. Missiles, air raids intensify fighting. Civilian areas have been hit.
US's Gulf allies bear the brunt of Iranian counter-attacks. Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, Kuwait, Bahrain condemn strikes. They warn Tehran of serious consequences.
US President Donald Trump makes big claims on the killing of Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, asserting that he moved first to neutralize what he described as an imminent threat to his own life.
In the meanwhile, Brent crude jumps 13% to $82.37, highest since January 2025 as West Asia tensions and Strait of Hormuz disruptions push oil to four-year high, raising global energy concerns. US Embassy and consulates in Pakistan suspend services after violent protests erupted following the killing of Iran's Supreme Leader Khamenei.
Amid West Asia war bloodbath on Dalal Street, Sensex down by over 1,100 points, Nifty by 300 points, Rupee slides further.
India urges restraint and dialogue as Prime Minister Modi speaks with Benjamin Netanyahu, calling for calm amid escalating Middle East tensions.
Congress condemns illegal war on Iran, urges end to US-Israel strikes, calls for Indian protection abroad and criticizes the government's handling of escalating Middle East conflict.
And global travel chaos deepens as thousands of flights cancelled. Major Gulf airports, including Dubai, Abu Dhabi and Doha, restrict operations. Several passengers left stranded.
So the West Asia war has entered its third day today. In fact, with violence intensifying across multiple fronts, Israel has launched fresh airstrikes on Hezbollah, targeting across Lebanon, including strongholds in Beirut's southern suburbs, following rocket fire from the Iran-backed group. Meanwhile, US President Donald Trump has claimed that he did kill Khamenei before he could kill Trump, alleging there had been 2 prior assassination attempts on his life, claiming that these, in fact, claims are also unverified. The conflict is now spilling beyond Israel and Lebanon. In Baghdad, protesters have stormed the US embassy amid rising anti-American anger. Iran says it has inflicted major damage on US assets in the region, including alleged drone strikes on bases in Kuwait and Bahrain and missile strikes on the USS Abraham Lincoln Striker Group. US diplomatic missions in Pakistan have suspended operations after violent protests erupted following the killing of Khamenei. Fears of a wider regional war are now mounting further. This as the UAE has shut financial markets in Abu Dhabi and Dubai for 2 days, citing security concerns. Global markets are reacting sharply as gold and silver prices have also surged, while the Indian rupee has weakened against the dollar. All right, and we're getting in breaking inputs. In fact, the IDF has made fresh claims with regards to the downing of a fighter jet in Kuwait. F-15 has crashed in Kuwait. In the latest, we are learning that the pilot has survived. This is an F-15 crash that's taken place. It is, in fact, as far as the cause of the incident is yet unknown, but this is another fighter jet which we are telling you about. In fact, we also have visuals of that. It's an F-15 which crashed in Kuwait. There is an American confirmation of it also being reported that the US has also reacted. Is it the US President himself reacting on Truth Social? We are yet awaiting more details, but let's quickly take this forward with Akash, who will share more details. Akash, what can you tell us about this F-15? The pilot is reportedly safe, but what exactly happened when it was being done?
Right. You see, Akanksha, we are getting these visuals where, in fact, in a way, a confirmation is also coming that this was a US Air Force F-15, which was reportedly shot down over Kuwait. And this is, this appears to be a friendly fire incident where possibly the air defenses of Kuwait has taken down the particular aircraft. But the relieving part is that pilots have survived, and in fact, there are reports that people have seen ejection, and this is why we can say that pilot has ejected. And we are of course waiting for some sort of official confirmation on the survival of the pilot. But this appears to be a friendly fire incident where we know that how Kuwait is a very the tensions, that are in fact happening in the particular region, how Iran has been targeting several military infrastructure in Kuwait as well. But this particular crash, or I should say the shutdown, has happened possibly in the friendly fire incident where the air defenses, have possibly taken down the particular aircraft. We'll wait for the official confirmation, but this is a part of the sort of tensions and the escalations that we are seeing in the region. From last 24 hours, we have been reporting that how things have been escalating and, things are changing, constantly, given the fact that several airstrikes have been carried out by Israel and US on Iran. And after that, we have seen that how Iran has been retaliating, while, it is targeting countries like UAE and in fact Kuwait as well. But this particular visual, these are the shots that we have got from different sources. And, confirmation is somewhere coming that pilot has ejected, after the particular incident, Akanksha.
Okay, Akash, keep talking to us and tell us a little bit. Give us an overview of the kind of damage we've seen of US bases, military assets in some of these Gulf nations, because now that's another aspect to the story. Very important to track how much damage, because Iran is also making some big claims on social media. If you could quickly give us an overview.
Right. So you see, when we talk about the presence of United States or the forces in the region, specific countries like UAE, in fact,
Okay, we're just connecting that line with you. We seem to have an audio trouble with that line of yours, Akash. Stay on with us. We keep up with these visuals. These are visuals from Kuwait. What we're learning in the latest, as per details that have trickled in so far, is that this is a fighter jet that has crashed in Kuwait. Look at that. We've zoomed in that one visual for you as well. This is the fighter jet coming down. It's an F-15 that has crashed in Kuwait is what we're learning now. Akash is telling us that there's still a little bit of a wait and watch happening. Formal details yet to trickle in, but by the looks of it, this is an F-15. And what we're also learning is that the pilot has survived this particular crash. The cause of the incident is not known as yet. Was this fighter jet down? What more? We'll have to try and piece some of those details as we keep up with these visuals. But yes, this is how the war in West Asia is playing out on day 3. No signs of de-escalation as yet. Do remember today, this morning, at least Indian Standard Time, we began by picking up visuals really of how Israel was going after some of the Hezbollah targets, which in fact have begun fighting this war for Iran. Ambassador Dogra is with us in our studio here. Good morning, Ambassador. Your thoughts really on what we're tracking. These are big, important visual sets that continue to trickle in, that go on to also highlight we're far, far away from looking at any signs of de-escalation as yet.
F-15 is just one small part of the story. Fortunate, but in wars, these losses are the normal. The news that is trickling in from Israel is much more serious. There are reports that a nuclear power plant has been targeted by Iranian missiles. There are reports that some of the generals, Israeli generals, have been sort of killed in strikes by...
Apologies, Ambassador. I need to quickly come in because this is another important piece of information that's coming in. We need to cut across to CNN Live.
Was unable to use their bases, to use their airspace in order to carry out this attack. They had been lobbying hard the United States president to try and convince him not to go ahead with these strikes against Iran. They believed that that would show that they had distanced themselves from what is happening right now, but it has not. We are seeing an unprecedented retaliation from Iran against these Gulf nations, and the leaders of these nations are extremely angry, some of them saying they reserve the right to retaliate should this continue. And Jim, as of now, it is continuing.
So, Paula, in Dubai and Abu Dhabi, in the UAE,
Who is providing the missile defense? Is that a combination of their own resources in the U.S. military, or is it primarily the U.S. military?
Well, here in the UAE, they actually have among the strongest air defense systems in the Middle East, with the exception of Israel, of course. They have worked very closely with the US military over a number of years. We know that THAAD is operational here, or certainly we heard that it was coming last year. We know also that that there is cooperation with the US military on the ground. There's the Al Dhafra military base, for example, that often has a strong US presence, likely not at the moment. We know the US military moved a lot of their personnel to other areas in the weeks coming up to this strike. And a similar situation across the Middle East. These Gulf nations have security alliances. They have pacts with the US military. They consider themselves to come under the security umbrella of the United States. And certainly a lot of the assets that they have, a lot of the technology is in conjunction with the US. It is US material, although there is an increasing homegrown industry in the defense industry here in the UAE, in Saudi as well. Jim?
Paula Hancock, keep yourself and your team safe there. Thanks so much for joining. And we'll be back with more news of this expanding war in the Middle East right after this.
What we just saw was a CNN report. You heard the correspondent there say that the explosions in some of these Arab nations in the Gulf continue to be heard loud, and we're seeing non-stop reporting on that front as well. Now, this is the larger concern which is now brewing, and this is a concern that the entire world is watching out for. Yes, India is monitoring this very closely, given the relationship it enjoys with some of these Gulf countries. But let's not forget, diplomatically speaking as well, so far we've heard that Prime Minister Narendra Modi has dialed Benjamin Netanyahu. We've also heard that he's spoken to the president in UAE. So far, no communication whatsoever between India and Iran. But developments are trickling in on an hourly basis, so we're still watching out for that one. But these are explosions, sound of loud explosions that have been heard in Abu Dhabi, UAE. That's one concern which is being spoken of, not just by players like, let's say, India. We've also seen some of the European nations vocally raise this issue. Some of these countries have come out to say that the strikes which have been carried out by Iran targeting US bases is also inflicting heavy casualties, civilian casualties in some of these Gulf nations, and that is an area of concern. Well, another piece of visual that we're just putting out for you. Now, these are visuals that we continue to access, gather and put out, viewers, and the focus should be on what's happening in different parts of Middle East. West Asia conflict continues to escalate. Today, the two big developments that have come in, one is, of course, the statement by President Donald Trump. He has gone on to say that we've emerged victorious. Not just that, he says that US will continue to batter Iran. So expect that for the next few days, which is a sign of escalation, a sign that US is not going to give up as yet. He also did acknowledge the casualties that have taken place of American soldiers and some stationed in some of these US bases in the Middle East. So he's acknowledged all of that, but he says the United States of America will not stop. The other big development has been the non-stop retaliation that we're seeing. And both sides, we're seeing Iran attack, we're also seeing Israel retaliate, goes both ways. We've seen the Hezbollah in action. So proxy war once again, something that we've seen all along. What we've seen between Iran and Israel for the longest time was limited to shadow war out in the open, but now proxies also coming in and really taking this forward for Iran. So those are the two key developments we've seen, which are strong signals of how the situation is not de-escalated. No sign of de-escalation as yet. And this is another visual set that we're pulling out for you that we want you to look at. And we've seen several other visuals which are concerning, because this also speaks volumes of what Khamenei meant to the Muslim world, the Muslim population across the world. We've seen protests, demonstrators take to streets, protest in countries like Iraq, in Pakistan as well. US embassies coming under attack is what we've also witnessed. and security forces, of course, trying to disperse the crowd. So there's a little bit of a concern there as well on how some of the Khamenei supporters across the world are now taking to streets to protest. Ambassador Dogra continues to stay on with us. General Pandey is with us on the broadcast as well. General Pandey, your thoughts? We're putting out these visuals of the F-15 fighter that has crashed in Kuwait. What do you make of this? We're still trying to piece this together. The cause as yet is not known, but this is big. And if Iran were to claim that there's a lot more to what we're seeing, what is your analysis here?
So we just saw, and I think Tom Cooper was trying to brief about this thing. I didn't see any strike taking place. The aircraft was already in a swirl motion while coming down, and you could see the contrails bursting with fire suddenly. And I feel that this is something either to do with the aircraft itself, or maybe it is something to do with the Kuwaiti air defense systems of friendly fire. But I did not see, because the visual which was shown on the slide, it was shown some degree of some attacking object bursting closer to it, which is not there. So I have a feeling that it is not neither it is a counter their own.
Okay. So speaking of Iran, General Pandey, what are Iran's realistic military options against Israel and the United States? Because they were caught napping, and this was planned, well planned on part of United States and Israel. Goes without saying. What do you think are the options before Iran right now?
You know, no, Iran was not caught napping. I think they were fully prepared. The only thing is that, as Ambassador Dogra brought out earlier as well, you can never trust your enemy. One should never trust, because even in Operation Midnight Hammer, when it came about, the talks were on, and the Trump had said that we are taking 10, 14 days, and he carried the strike, I think, just on 7th or 9th or 10th day. Similarly here, the talks were ongoing. There was another day to go. There were positive inputs coming out, but on the 9th day, they carried out strike. These are measures which are states take to ensure that they achieve complete success. I don't decry, because I feel that this is how it should be done, possibly at the strat level. But I think Iran was fully prepared. But yet, what has happened is that Iran has been taken from two sides. That is, one is from the external overwhelming which is being taken. You please understand that Iranians are 14th, 15th military power in the world. But when you look at Israel, which itself is 15th, 16th military power, joining hands with the Americans, who are the absolute lead, clearly ahead of even China by miles. When they join hands, then you swarm, then you take over, you overpower any air defense systems, you overpower a military which is in the technological realm. Right now, they don't have the capacity to put boots on ground. So this will continue to remain on a tech superiority angle in which they will carry on strikes. Even if, please understand, even if it spirals into a low intensity conflict after about a week, even the change of posture of the Iranian leadership doesn't take place within a week's time, which it should. I have a feeling that it should take place after about a week or so.
And the other thing, in the meanwhile, they're going to continue to do is waging a war through proxies.
Yeah, but again, Christine, I just want to add, the second part, what Iranians have to really worry, there isn't something which is inside brewing within their own country. After all, technology can give you only that much in terms of intelligence and information. A closed state like Iran has been exposed from within by people who are working for outsiders. It is because of the regime, or otherwise who are on the payrolls or factions and fictions and anything. So there is something also brewing. Therefore, I have a feeling that it will last about a week, and thereafter some degree of solution start emerging from within Iran.
So, Lieutenant General D.B. Pandey, even if we were to, in fact, you raised a very interesting point in terms of how long this could, in fact, last. But let me quickly bring in Ambassador Dogra to weigh in on that point. Ambassador Dogra, today we've seen a joint statement come in from US and its Middle Eastern allies that includes UAE, Kuwait, Bahrain, Jordan. All of them have, in fact, condemned these retaliatory strikes. Right now, this is a conflict between between US, Israel versus Iran. But for how long will these US allies in the Middle East be able to adopt that ostrich approach and let Iran also continue with these strikes?
Well, first things first, good morning to General Pandey and good morning to both of you in the studio.
Very good morning to you,
Now, the problem I have with the joint statement and much of Netanyahu and Trump's actions is that whatever they have done has been sanctioned by the God. Whatever Iran does is evil. That's not how the real world operates. The second point I wish to make is that victory in a war is assured if the objectives are clear and why you are going against another country. And if your own population is convinced that this war is legitimate. No war is legitimate, but at least there's some kind of symbol of legitimacy. Now, in both these cases, neither Trump nor Netanyahu had the approval of their people. Trump did not even give the courtesy of consultation to his own Congress as required by the law. UN Secretary General has condemned Trump's and Netanyahu's actions in no uncertain terms, which is quite a rare thing for United Nations to do, because United Nations was supposed to be sort of cowed down by America and rubber stamping everything that America wanted. This is a rare instance where Secretary General has gone out of the way to say this should not have happened. Now, what is happening now is Netanyahu has rushed to Germany requesting them also to join in the war. Now, you do that only when you're desperate. And the fact is that Iran's strikes against Israel in particular, and I'm choosing my words very carefully, against American assets in the Gulf countries. Iran has not attacked any of the Gulf countries' targets. That means those used exclusively by the Gulf countries. They may have attacked the airports which are being used by USA, but they did not attack civilian
So that's
targets.
exactly the point that we've also been discussing, and Tom was also saying that the target is meant to be these US assets in the these ally countries, but because these are densely populated areas, they are inadvertently hitting civilian targets, because if civilians were indeed the target, the casualties could have been in hundreds.
That is, to use the American terminology, collateral damage.
Right, right. Lieutenant General D.P. Pandey, the sheer escalatory nature of this, as Ambassador Dogra was also highlighting, they've gone on to ask for Germany's help. They're also trying to involve France over here because, say, UK has already reacted. In fact, Sir Keir Starmer also spoke about their fleet being involved. But if NATO were to get involved, what is the end game of this war? If NATO and these Middle Eastern US allies were to get involved, what happens?
So look, while
and
I
Iran
think,
has already indicated that they are not looking towards any negotiations now.
Yeah, Kansha, it's too early for Iranians to talk about negotiations. It's just, again, this is something, not a war which is being fought between two street people. That also goes for a very long time. We are fighting a war with two military powers and two nations and two ideologies which are totally disparate and different. And it's about survival of Iranian regime's thought process, which is absolutely contrarian to this thing. While the Gulf states have already changed their thought process and they have aligned to the Western ideology to a great extent, but Iranians are totally polar opposite and they have never changed their views for the last about 45-50 years. They remain where they remain. So to believe that it's going to just crumble, IRGC is not just not a slap dog onto a stream that they can wish away. They will fight, they will control, and this will go on for some time. But I just want to add both the countries, the Israelis and Americans, and a lot of time people are saying that Trump has put Israel first this time. I don't think so. I think it's a war of Americans with Iran, and it is something to do with the Chinese. It is just not about Iran itself.
Yes,
So
I'm glad you said that.
Yeah, so I think I told last time also on your this thing on your channel, but American immediate political objective is to change the strategic orientation of Iran. They should give up the ballistic missile systems and because that was threat not only to America but more importantly to Gulf states eventually. So if you recall, while Saudi Crown Prince has said about a month back they will not allow their own airspace and ground to be attacked for Iran. But the fact of the matter is that he was the one who went urging, and Trump has said as much, that he came to me and telling this is going to be eventually a challenge. Because when the ballistic missile numbers, which in 2027 they were aiming to make to 8,000, that crosses, and the speed of missile crosses, there was no way Saudis could have protected themselves. So that is one, I think they want to change. The second, they want to change orientation was about the nuclear ambition, with 440 kgs of uranium lying with them for 60% enriched. It was just matter of time, I think, in a couple of months. While the process of integrating, process of weaponizing further takes time, but they would have had the capability to use nuclear weapons. So this was, I think, the Americans wanted. But look at from the Iranian side. Iran is a sovereign nation. They wanted to have a weapon, nuclear weapons. When Pakistan, which is a terror state, known terror state, can have nuclear weapons and Americans can continue to engage with them, Israel can have in the region, why should not Iran have its own? So I think these were two polarized actions that are taking place, and both have their own mission, and therefore they are both legitimate to fight the war, even at the cost of regional conflict with a global implication. I guess that's how the world works. Not a good world, but yes.
Yeah, and even when it comes to Iran's nuclear ambitions, we've seen a lot of ups and downs, and that's where the United States began playing a key role and almost now dictating to Iran on what it must do next. Hold on, gentlemen, I'll come back to you in just a bit. I want to quickly go across to Shivani. She's being joined by Tom. We need to break down the story, take you through the latest visuals coming in, and also an overview, an analysis of what the impact of this conflict could look like. Shivani, over to you.
Thanks a lot. We're focusing on that F-15 downing that has taken place in Kuwaiti airspace. And these are the visuals of at least one of those American pilots. He's sitting in the boot of a car, lying down. And we can easily identify, Tom, that this is the American uniform and the American airman.
By his khaki uniform, for example, and G-suit and the survival gear tied to his belly, for example. This is clearly a U.S. Air Force airman.
But there would be two pilots, isn't it?
Yes, in an F-15E, there would be two of them. I haven't seen the video showing the boat of parachutes, so I don't know what happened to the second gentleman.
You can hold this mic as well, Tom,
yes.
Since I have my own. So the other pilot's whereabouts, we don't know.
We don't know.
We've only managed to really get information on one of the pilots. So one of the pilots is secure, and these must be the Kuwaiti people who must have intercepted this downed pilot, but they're going to take him to the US base now.
Probably to the US base or to the Kuwaiti police, Kuwaiti armed forces, and then to the US base.
Yeah. How rare is it for an F-15 to be downed?
Quite rare. It is actually...
Has it happened?
Right, it has happened. I'm currently counting in my head. It's some 4th or 5th combat loss in total.
Okay.
Over 30 years.
Pretty rare. So it's
pretty Since 1991, yes. Pretty rare, yes.
This is that footage.
This is the F-15.
What can you make of this footage?
Well, you can make that it's an F-15 by two fins. You can make it by the form of its, plan form of its wing. You can make it out by, if you look under the intakes, there are pods. These are targeting pods, navigation and targeting pods, which this is what you see then the video of